Can you imagine me about 100 pounds lighter, 3 shades darker, and an Angela Davis afro that was not cute? That's how I arrived into the rooms of recovery. And you said welcome, and you hugged me. And no one was really hugging me. My family was looking at me with a bewildered look because they didn't really understand what was going on. Shame, I think, is the most pervasive. I think it's greater than hate. Because, see, shame gets on everything. You can't put a rug on top of it. If you do, it will bleed through. It gets on everything. And I simply try not to do anything that would cause shame in my life. Because it would make me be like Adam and Eve. I'll hide from God.
Welcome, guys, to another episode of the Journey to Solutions podcast, where we interview people from all walks of life who've overcome the impossible. We shine light on one simple truth: no matter your past, no matter your pain, with the power of God, anything is possible. And today we have a very special guest. She's a pastor, which is amazing. We were having a conversation before this, and she's one of those people that says, be all things to all people and meet people where they're at. In a place of brokenness, like addiction, trauma, mental health, that is so needed. She's also worked in the treatment world, and she's worn many hats, from being the counselor, from running the program, to working with the people. So she understands that whole world too. So she has a lot of wisdom and understanding of how it is to help people in all walks of life. She also has a solid 37 years of sobriety. 37 years. Think about that. That's a long time. Some of you guys watching this probably are not even 37 years old yet. And she has that much time. So you know she's going to have a lot to offer. So please keep your ears, your eyes, and your heart open as I introduce Pat Parker.
Hey, Fausto, thanks so much for having me on the show today.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I love that you have such a people-focused spirit. As I'm talking to you before this, I can just feel like you're like, I'm about the people. And you're really able to separate, I think, kind of like, hey, like, yes, I love God, but remember, this is about the people. No matter where they come from, no matter how they talk, how they dress, remember, you're missing the point. Look at their heart. Now, have you always been like that?
You know, I've always been very curious about people, but my faith tradition causes me to believe that we are all image bearers of God. I really believe that. And because of that, I believe that value is a birthright. Whether or not you discern it, whether or not you see it, it is simply there by nature that we be human. And so I really believe in expanding the circle of human belonging. Even if you feel outside, it is my role to help expand the circle so that you could fit should you choose to join us. And when I say that, I'm not saying to compartmentalize yourself and join us, but to bring your entire self as you are in that moment into the circle, because simply you belong. But I haven't always believed or been able to appropriate what I believe in my life because of my own personal journey. And so the conversation that we're having now and what you hear has evolved over 37 years.
Yeah, and I love that, because that's something I loved about AA. And again, people can always have their opinions about AA. You always hear it. But I always say, hey, you can find something wrong with anything in the world, any group, and all that stuff. Again, people are missing the point. But one thing with AA that I love was that when somebody understands, okay, that's the newcomer, I'm going to go introduce myself to the newcomer. I'm not going to expect him to introduce himself to me. He might have anxiety. He might be afraid and scared, anxious, shy. I get it. So let me reach out to him. Hey, you want to sit next to me? Hey, this is so-and-so. This is so-and-so. Hey, we're going to grab coffee after this. You want to come with us? You don't have a car? That's okay. You could come with me. And where do you live? I'll drop you off.
Absolutely. That's it.
And like you said, that's that idea of like, I'm not telling you to be someone you're not to fit in with us. I'm just saying I want you to be exactly who you are. And that's why I'm welcoming you in as you are.
And that's how my recovery journey began in AA. There were people who were waiting there because they were dealing with their own recovery. I remember walking into the room. Listen, in my neighborhood, I grew up in South Central Los Angeles. I'm a third generation Angelino. Nobody was coming back to talk about they found a way up and out. And the way I found you all is through a family intervention where they held a family meeting and then they invited me and they were talking about why they thought it was a good idea for me to go and get some help. And they sent me to an outpatient treatment program, and that outpatient treatment program sent me to meetings. And it was at those meetings that it was the fellowship that captured me before I knew about a book, before I knew about sponsors, before I knew about a step. It was you people. You simply said, come and go with us. You welcomed me just as I was. Can you imagine me about 100 pounds lighter, 3 shades darker, and an Angela Davis afro that was not cute? That's how I arrived into the rooms of recovery. And you said welcome, and you hugged me. And no one was really hugging me. My family was looking at me with a bewildered look because they didn't really understand what was going on, because I'm the only one of my siblings that suffers from this disease. I'm not saying that they're normal.
Right.
But I'm saying that they don't suffer from this
part,
disease.
yeah.
Right. And so when I got to you, when I arrived, and absolutely a God shot, I'm certain that the divine was involved, God. Because how did I get here? And I got here, and man, you guys embraced me.
And let me ask you that too, because I know you were saying earlier in our conversation that you've known God for a long time.
Yes.
Right? But you didn't get sober till what age?
I got sober in my 20s. I used to say my early 20s, but if you get sober in your 20s, that's just plain on early. I'm not going to tell you the exact age because I'm not going to tell you my exact age.
So your 20s. So
yes.
So I want to ask you that too, because sometimes, right, a lot of times you see that, right? Like, this person's always known God, so why wasn't God enough to get him sober and when they knew God as a kid versus and then, but when AA, it finally clicked. From your perspective, what do you think you were missing, that even though you had God in your life, that you still weren't, it still wasn't enough to be sober yet until you found AA?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that, because, you know, in our literature, it talks about how every person has the fundamental idea of God within inside themselves. And so folks intuitively know that there is a God. They can sense a God, but that's different from having relationship or being able to apply the God idea in your life towards solution. And so in order to do that, you could know, and I knew that there was a God. I knew that there was a God because I could sense God. I grew up in a household of faith. I could see God in operation in other people's lives. My grandparents were Christian missionaries. They did great things. My mother was a believer. I could see God. They would have difficult times, and they would talk about trusting God and walking in faith through those circumstances and situations. And I could see the evidence of it, but it was them. It was like being an outsider looking in. It's like, I can see God and I do believe God and I can hear God, but how do I appropriate the principles? How do I, Pat Parker, live by the principles of God? I did not know how to do that. And fundamentally, I thought I had to be good in order to get with God.
Yeah, and I think that's so important for people to understand. I think sometimes we have this transactional idea of how God works, right? Because that's the human way a lot of times, right? Whether that's the way the world is, right? It's if you do right, you get rewarded. If you do right, then I'll love you. But like you said, but God's love is unconditional. But if we don't understand that or comprehend that, you know, that's really hard. And I think it's in the Drop the Rock book, right, where it talks about, you know, step 6 and 7, where I think it explains like how it's our defects of character that block us from our connection with God.
Yes.
And as you work on those, you start to really feel that sense of connection. When I'm not living right or doing right based on these behaviors that are fueled by, right, insecurities, trauma, unawareness, I feel disconnected. But now when I start living right by these principles, now that connection is there.
So I'd like to frame that slightly. more simply in language that I like to use with newcomers. And so when we begin to talk about those defects of character and shortcomings, defects of character is the way that I think. And my shortcomings is how I act out that thinking. And so based on how I think and how I act based on that thinking is what really separates me from God. But it begins with how I'm thinking. And more than that, or deeper than that, what I believe about the God idea. And so if I believe that I have to be good in order to maintain relationship with God, and then I do something that I believe is not good or not worthy enough to be with God, then I begin to reject or separate myself or create distance from me and the idea that I have about God. And then I'm out there by myself. And then when I'm out there by myself, I'm trying to be my own solution. And then being my own solution drives behavior that creates an even greater separation from me and the God idea that I have. And what recovery has done for me is given me an opportunity to evolve in the God idea, to have experiences with God that are undeniable, like the very fact that I am sober, that the obsession that compelled me to pick up the first one has been removed and has not returned. It's not that I haven't thought about different things, because I've been sober a long time. They've got drinks that were not there, that I never heard of, and they sound so cute. And I'm like apple vodka martini. Ooh,
in a can now to go. What? Right?
Simple, yeah.
Low calories. What is there? Is it actually healthy for you? Electrolytes now in the vodka?
Let me tell you an old one, right? Cristal. I was at work one day, right, and I was working corporate America, and the younger folks there was talking about Cristal. I said, what does that taste like? Because it wasn't there when I got sober. And so while I have not been compelled and driven, meaning that the obsession has been expelled, right? God did that. And God keeps doing that.
Yeah.
And God retains that power to God's self. Because I did everything I could, Fausto, not to have to surrender to a 12-step program. I just did not want to have to keep coming back. I was like, I'm just not that slow. I'll be able to figure it out.
And I love your honesty with like the again, right, separating obsession and thoughts, right? Like the obsession is gone, but I still have a thought. And I love that you say that because for me, my opinion, when we used to meet people in recovery, whether it's me in my early recovery, even today, people that have, whether it's more time than me or time in general, and I'm like, hey, do you ever have the thought again? They go, nope. Since day one, God took it away. I never think about it ever. Never a problem. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, damn, why do I think about it every now and then? Am I not programming right? And sometimes for me, I notice, I'm like, either for some reason, that's just how it worked in their life, or there's still a part of them where they feel like they can't be that honest for whatever reason. They're trying to project this thing. Because that's what I like about like therapists, right? I have my sponsor, but I have my therapist too I go to. Why? Because my therapist, and I have my pastor, but sometimes my therapist will break it down like, look, Fausto, everyone's trying to figure it out. Okay, remember that. Everyone is. Everyone's trying to figure it out. And sometimes it's nice to hear that. He's like, I'm a Christian. I love God. I go to church. But there's days that sometimes I'm like, what happens if it wasn't real? He's like, I'm going to have a thought. He's like, but he goes away. He's like, so it's okay if you think that. He's like, think about it, Fausto. If you're always happy and you're never sad, you're going to make people feel very uncomfortable. Because people are going to question, well, what's wrong with me if this guy's always happy? You know, and my girl told me that one time. She's like, yeah, it's hard because you say you're always happy and you have no problem. She's like, I feel like I have no value in your life to support you, or I feel like I can't share my problems with you because you said you never have them. And I'm like, oh, I didn't think about it. I thought I couldn't share those with you. I thought I had to always. She's like, no, it's okay to be human. And so when you say like, yeah, I'll have a thought every now and then, or like, I never heard of that drink. What does it taste like? It's like, thank you for saying that, because that does cross my mind, and you help normalize it to not feel like it's a weakness.
I think that, context And communication is key in that we are also limited by communication. We only have language, and it has to be a shared language to make sure that we're have a shared understanding. And sometimes I think people use words interchangeably. And so when I say a thought, I'm not talking about the obsession, which is also understood to be a thought that overrules all other thoughts. And so when people, I think,
Right.
in recovery, new and older, when they're communicating and they're talking about they haven't had a thought, I'm thinking what they're saying and what I'm communicating is that I have not experienced the obsession to drink or drug since being sober. Not that I haven't had fleeting thoughts about alcohol. And I think that we have to be really clear in our communication, especially for new people, because we need to have a shared language and a shared understanding about what it is that we're saying. Because a newcomer can get like, "What's wrong with me?" I still think about that, and then what I say to people is this, and this has been my experience. Not only have I recovered from, a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body as it relates to alcohol, but I've had to recover from many character defects throughout my sobriety. And so then once the drink and the drug idea have been removed, now how does recovery apply? And so it says it really simply, right? Whether or not I be drinking, I still have a problem with my thinking. Why?
Yeah.
Because I have a disease, a dis-ease that is centered in my thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I love that, right? I don't have a drinking problem. I have a thinking problem now.
I have a thinking problem. And how is my thinking showing up in my life today?
Yeah.
And that's where we get to recovery.
Yeah. And that's why I love that part where like step 6 and 7, they say it separates the men from the boys and the girls from the women, because that's the work, and it's a journey, because like you said, right? Normally the next thing you see when someone gets sober, the next disease or illness is a codependency. You see it, the love drug. I always said the love drug is real. And you see that a lot in early recovery, where I have 10 days sober, you have 5. If we date, we have 15 together, we'll take over the world.
I tell my sponsees that once alcohol and drugs are removed, what remains is 3 things. How now do you find ease and comfort? Because it is not true to say we don't try to access ease and comfort in other ways, right? It's just where and how. And I say that it remains in 3 areas: money, food, and sex. And if you're a real good alcoholic and addict like me, then you've mixed and matched. Because they have subcategories under those, right? And so we fix on love and sex and relationships, money, how much can I make, where can I spend, how can I buy, what does this look like, whether it's a home, whether it's a car, whether it's my clothes, because I need it to fix me. Now, a Jaguar will work for a good 6 months, I promise you. But then after that, after you have fixed for a while, it's always temporary relief from whatever it is.
I see it a lot with people who jump into fitness really quick in recovery, right? They get addicted to the gym, and it's like, well, what happens when you get hurt and you can't work out that week? And you see it happen, right? They're all about it, and then they're hurt, and then they start spiraling. It's like, well, yeah, because you made fitness your fix. But what happens when you got to take a day off, a weekend off, you get hurt? Or, it's like anything in the beginning when it's new, it's always exciting. Oh, it's easy. Oh, yeah, this feels great. Wait, why doesn't it feel good anymore? Because that's not how life works.
It's not. And we are human. First of all, the word human, I like to shorten it to say that means to come up short. Right? Humanity, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about these emphasis that we put on things to fix us, right? It lacks balance. And I think that it's important that we be in balance. When I'm talking about that, I'm talking about touching the different domains of our life. And they're easy to spot. How am I in the relationships? We need certain things just to live, right? Because we are human. We're spiritual, so we need a relationship with God. We need a relationship with people. We need to have finances. We need to we need to be in physical condition. Those are the different domains, but if we are putting an emphasis on one rather than the other, it's out of balance. And so, yeah, that's what happens. I mean, and so can we find balance? Can we do this and that? It's not either or.
Yeah.
Because there's no one thing that can fix us. And I've learned this for myself. Growing up, measuring my insides by other people's outsides, always coming up short, not enough. And to understand that, it took me a while to grasp in the room of recovery that if I suffered from a spiritual malady, that I would require a spiritual remedy, and that nothing on the outside could fix what's wrong with me on the inside. And so really what it's pointing to is my relationship with God at any given time. And if I find myself out of balance, if I find myself using something to fix me, it points to where's God at? And that's the place to go.
What do you think is, I'm curious about your perspective.
Uh-huh.
How do you explain the balance to somebody when we understand what we need is God, right? God's the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
What's the balance of yes, God is your foundation, but like you said, but you still got to take care of other things too. What's that balance you try to, because sometimes I've seen people, whether they go too spiritual, right? It's like almost like they're like, oh, I'm good. I don't need anything else but prayer and God. It's all I need. He took everything away. I'm like, yeah, but what about your health? What about, are you going on date night once a week? Oh, I got to do the ministry. It's okay.
Well, first of all, you got to have somebody to date. Now, don't go there, Father.
Okay. Well,
I want to do date night, but
right, you're like, hold on, I don't got to answer for that yet.
But there's a balance for that too,
Yeah.
and I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, what's your opinion on that? Because I see it a lot, whether somebody gets sober through church, which I've seen. Again, I know there's many ways to get right. Sometimes when they go through that route, they feel like they don't need anything else. Or some people do get right in AA, and then they kind of go way too far in the God thing and kind of forget about everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there's a couple of things that's happening, and it depends on the individual. And it depends on what it is that they're recovering from, Fausto. I think that we try to paint wide brushes for individuals with a myriad of experiences, and we don't know. What I understand is that we know one another by our stories. And it's important to know a person's story so that we don't assign them in certain categories, because we don't really know what's going on with people unless they share with us. And so then to have an expectation of someone can be unrealistic based on who they are and their stories and what they've overcome. We tend to look at where someone is not yet, as opposed to how far they have already come. So we have to put the measuring stick down. So, for example, if someone has experienced great personal trauma, whether it's physical abuse, whether it's sexual abuse, whatever kind of trauma there may be, to expect them, no matter how many years they may have, to be in balance is difficult. I need to know the person's story so that I can see how far they've come rather than where they are. Because it's, I was in South Africa. I was awarded a national fellowship called Radical Belonging. And one of the immersion experiences that we had was in South Africa, Cape Town. And when we got there, one of the things that we were going to be studying was taking a look at Bishop Desmond Tutu's Truth and Reconciliation process, to think about that. But we also got a chance to go into the townships. And one of the things that they cautioned us is to leave our American lens or problem-solving thinking at the hotel. Don't overlay your experience and your thinking to these people's reality, and how just in life across the board, that is one of the most difficult things to do, is to meet people where they are, which is why God does that. And we have to be trained to do that, and to not put on you what I see so clearly as a solution, not understanding your context or your story, but simply to meet you where you are and leave my stuff where it is. And so, you know, okay, he's working out. Is he sober? Is she sober? Is it working? I like how the book talks about it. It says it like this about that relationship with God. You need to have a faith that works for you. Is it working for you? And when I say is it working, can you live with unresolved issues? Because I think we forget about that part. I think that we actually think that we're going to get to that place called there, and there is no there. There's only right now, and it's what we do now that determines what happens next in our lives. And so when we're looking at an individual thinking that they should have it all together, that's not true. It's a fallacy. It's like we've bought the lies. You know, and the lie is that if I work hard, then I'll be perfect. And it's no. What does practice make? They say it, practice makes perfect. No, it doesn't. Not in the human condition, not in the human concern. Practice only makes better. And so, where does my better begin? By me. How is my better measured? By me alone. And so, I tend to really not look at people and judge where they are. Now, as I sponsor people, I do get to know them more intimately. I want to understand their story so that I can help them, so that I can, hold their stories with them, so that I can remind them when that voice begins to talk, the inner me, the enemy begins to tell them who they are not, where they are not, how far they still have to go. But to remind them, oh my God, can you not see what God has done now? Because to not look at that robs us of peace and ultimately relationship with God. Because when you fail to be who you want to be and where you think you should be, what you're really saying is that God is not enough and has not been enough. And I'm here to tell you that we are all image bearers of God.
I love that. I mean, the way that you put it is so beautiful. I can see that you really emphasize on like doing your best to really just, like you said, right, look at what someone is good at. Look at how far they have come. Let's understand them so I can understand exactly why they are the way they are, because that develops compassion, empathy, and really focusing on that's why I always like, to be humble, right? Hey, I don't know everything. Hey, the Bible says, right? Jesus even says, hey, let them speak the way they want to speak, whether they know me or not. They're still saying my name. And I love that one story in the Drop the Rock where I think it was they're at a convention or something, and these two guys run into each other, and one of the guys is like, oh, I see my friend. I'm going to tell them how my mom's here. I really don't want to talk to her. I'm resentful at her. And so he goes to tell his friend, hey, guess who's here? And he's telling him, hey, that my mom's here, da-da-da-da-da. And his friend has the defect of lust, so his friend starts going, hold on, dude, hold that thought. And he goes, oh my gosh. But it shows that God used that guy's defect to remove him, which allowed him to have to go talk to his mom, and everything was good. And it goes, see, that's why it's like, you just never know what God is doing, right? Like, hey, I don't know anything. God can take anything, any aspect of whatever it takes, like you said, for that individual. If that's what they need, God knows. I don't know. God knows. Who am I to say I am the Holy One and God is telling me what to tell you? And that's why I love how you emphasize on that. Like, hey, I'm just going to love you for who you are and where you're at.
Yeah, and it's best that we don't know, because then we start meddling, trying to fix it, make it better. That's part of the human condition as well. But yeah, I think that if we can really begin to practice a way of life, this is not something that we put on. This is something who we are. It's in us. So it can't fall off of us. As we begin to practice a way of life that includes belonging, widening the circle of human concern, being bridges.
Let me ask you this, since you're a pastor and you do AA, what have you seen from your experience that maybe some churches are lacking that AA actually gives people in that type of community aspect? 'Cause I'm a part of both worlds too, and I have my observations, and I love how your concept is. I want to create this belonging just wherever I go, or communities. What have you seen that maybe some churches, not all churches, that maybe some churches are missing that AA actually gives people that's so helpful?
That's a great question. That's actually how I got connected to the fellowship I received, the Radical Belonging. I was actually stalking this guy, Ben McBride, online, and he wrote this book called Troubling the Waters. And I was working in the space of policy and advocacy, senior leader of policy and advocacy, where I did convenings and did looking at data and doing reports based on those convenings. And I remember coming across him online, and I scheduled an appointment to meet with him. And so he met with me, and I was just going to ask him to come and do some training at one of my trainings and one of my convenings. And in our conversation, it just really blew me away, because I began to talk to him, or he began to talk about this radical belonging. And the thing about it, Fausto, is that I recognized the principles right away, because they were principles that I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous. And what they were talking about with radical belonging is that our principle is that while we are people that would not normally mix, exists amongst us a fellowship. And so what we do in our fellowship, in the rooms of recovery, is that we have deep and abiding relationships with people that we would not normally mix with. And that is because we have a common peril and we have a common solution. And so it is the common bond. We may not be we may be divided by politics, religion, socioeconomic status, gender, sexuality. Those things may divide. We may be divided in that area. And Alcoholics Anonymous does not say, or does not try to say, you need to agree in those areas. We don't have to agree in those things that divide us, nor do we need to affirm one another in the things that divide us. But we must acknowledge and respect. Okay, so we have different faith traditions, then we don't need to have that conversation, because there's no point of agreement there. You got a God that works for you? I got one that works for me. That's as far as we need to go. And yet we can be in relationship. We can be in such deep relationships that you could be the head of a Fortune 500 company, a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I could be a girl, Black girl from South Central Los Angeles, just coming into the rooms. And you give me your phone number, because that's what we do to newcomers. And I pick up the phone and I call you because I'm worried about getting drunk that day. And I don't know about your personal life, because you've never disclosed that to me, because it's not important. Because what's important is that I've identified with the common bond that I be alcoholic like you. And I pick up the phone and I'll call you, and you're in a board meeting, but you answer your phone because you've put me in under newcomer, Pat Newcomer. And when I call, even though you're in an important meeting or getting ready to start an important meeting, you pick up the phone. Hey, Pat, what's going on? Hey, I'm in a bad spot. I think I'm getting ready to use. And you say, where you at? I'm right over here. Okay, this is what I want you to do. I want you to stay right there. I'm finna come get you. The CEO will schedule and shuffle, have his assistant shuffle this meeting around. I'll be back. And come and meet me and take me for coffee and listen to me and support me until I can get through, until he can pass me off to somebody else. Alcoholics Anonymous, the language that it's given me and the understanding that I've had for a long time about value, is also a bridge across. And I believe that the work that I'm doing with the bridge across is about churches, institutions that are in neighborhoods, Data says that many churches today, while they may have started one way, but today their congregations are commuters. They don't even live in the neighborhoods where those institutions reside. And the people in the neighborhood don't go to that church either. And what I want to do is train and support leaders and congregations and churches and institutions to become a bridge across to their community, where they be able to reach across the community and be a bridge through which they can work, in my case, across to Christ. But to be a bridge where they can walk across to meet their need and to meet them at their greatest point of need. And that requires training. Mm-hmm. That's about belonging. That's about widening the human circle. That's about understanding, according to our own tradition, that if they be human, they too are image bearers of Christ. They're image bearers. God is there. Now, what is my walk? What is my role? How am I going to help that person? How can I be a bridge so they can walk across to this God that is so good, loving, kind, merciful, who did for me what I couldn't do for myself? How is it that I find myself not an emissary to the lost? My master came to seek and save the lost.
Gosh, you're very good with your words. I'm going to say that got me emotional when you did the story with the CEO answering the phone and, finding a way to have his assistant move things around and come pick you up. Because again, I think people don't understand like how that type of love, selfless love that someone shows you could change the trajectory of somebody's life. And it's so sad how, like you said, but it's so abnormal. Because if I've seen people, for example, I've seen people, as we would quote, normies, right? But I don't think anyone's normal. But let's say people who are not like us and addicted to drugs and alcohol, that when they have issues, mental health issues, anxiety, going through grief and loss. And I see how they're like, man, I tried calling my friend, but they said they're busy. Or, hey, call me next week. Mm-hmm. Or I talk to someone and they're like, oh, okay. But they're like, but I'm busy. Mm-hmm. I can't just call my friends. Why? Because you can't do that. Like, you have to text first, make a schedule. I'm thinking like, even when you're going through a hard time like that, I'm like, that's so strange to me. Like, if someone needs help and I get a phone call, like, I pick it up. Why not? That's what we do. Like, I'll move things around. Why not? That's what you do. I'm like, it feels so good to do that. It not only helps them, but it helps me. And it's and that's why it's such a unique thing that AA does provide. And in churches, I've seen some people that are like that in a sense. They do care, they do love, but they're still like that. Well, I can't this weekend or next weekend. I have my plans I'm going to do. So maybe let's try next month. And it's just like, damn, this person's in need right now, and they have good excuses. But hey, we all have excuses, right? We can all make excuses. Hey, we're all too busy, but that's why we make time. And I see that. I'm like, wow, okay. And that's what I do love about AA. No matter what people say about it, you can say, I get it. There's a broken people. What's going to happen with broken people? Broken behaviors. But that type of love, to me, and I say to me, I've never felt so much closer to Jesus Christ than I have in an AA meeting in those moments. Especially, and it's not even just the meeting, it's the meeting after the meeting. Those moments of like, whoa.
I could agree that I find God in the rooms as well. I will say this, though, and we can't afford to forget it as we begin to juxtapose the church from AA. The only reason why we do it, Fausto, is because our life depends on it. It's not because we're good.
It's the reality. Yeah, it's true.
It's not because we're altruistic.
Yeah.
Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers
we'll die.
Depend on us being of service. Now, the church, I've got to acknowledge the church because I love the church. The church has played a critical role in my development and in my life. And there were people who sacrificed for me. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles along the Central Avenue corridor. And the Central Avenue corridor spans north very far towards downtown Los Angeles, all the way to the South Bay. And I never lived growing up more than 1 mile east or west of that corridor. And there were institutions, the Black church, there were people in the community who were committed to the village. And over time, there were things that began to break down community. And so, just like we have to understand the story of an individual, we also have to understand the story of a community. And I'm probably sure that if you grew up in a community, you can begin to trace the dismantling and the ills of the community that plagued your community as well. And yet, there were people who held the community down. And there were people, if you were going to go to school, if you got going to college, if you were one of the breakout kids, the breakthrough, then there would be some old Black mothers. And they would gather the community. We're going to fry enough chicken and sell chicken dinners to get this girl what she needs to go to college.
Yeah.
That's the church that I grew up in. And they would always talk to you about God. And my mother is one of those people. My mother lives with me today. And when my mother grew up, she eventually, as a single parent with 4 kids, was able to buy a house and get us out of the neighborhood, get us out of the projects. She was looking for a way up and out, and she didn't suffer from this disease. But you know what? She had these kids, and we were products of the environment. My sister and I managed to escape. My brothers got caught up. But my mother was a kind person. She was part of the Black church in our community. And you know what? My brothers were very charismatic guys. And so we had a basement. It was uncommon in California.
Right.
And we had a
Get a
basement.
basement there?
There would be many days she'd
Yeah.
get off work and she'd come down and she'd look in the basement, and there would be kids sleeping in our basement because they was friends with my brothers and they didn't have any place else to go. And you know what she would say? She didn't fuss at them. She didn't say, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" You know what she would let them know? What time dinner was. And to this day, if my mother is ever in the old neighborhood, there'll be men and women, if they still live there, who remember my mother because they remember my brothers and they remember her kindness, and they walk up to her and ask her how she's doing. And she won't remember them because she doesn't remember them. But because they're talking to her, she'll talk to them. And you know what she's asking them? "Hey, baby, how you doing?" She says, "What church do you belong to?" Not because she really believes that they're, based on the condition, but she wants to know, do you have a relationship with God? Because she's always told us, you're going to need a God. You're going to need God. And that's what they tell us in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. We need a power. We're talking about God that can do for us what we cannot do for ourselves. Why? Because we find ourselves measuring the community, the church, against AA, beyond human aid. And so, while we can look at them, they do their part in the best way that they can. But we only do it
Because we'll die.
because our lives
Mm-hmm.
depend on it.
And it's so true. And that's what I was explaining. I was like, the difference is, like you said, like I have to do this.
Yeah.
Like you said, I'm naturally selfish, self-centered. I want to do what I want to do. I want to, naturally. But, and don't get me wrong, I enjoy it. I do. But a part of me, the reason why I do what I do is because I know, like, if I don't do this, I know I will die if I go back. And I will.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the motivation that drives me to go beyond the natural way people serve others. Is my life depends on it.
And it gets us out of ourselves,
Yeah.
because the truth is that none of us have perfect lives. What we do get is an opportunity to live with unresolved issues without alcohol. We get to do that sober, right? And so then as this life, as it is unfolding, and as, we're having moments, and then we're having these feelings about the moments that we're having, that, we get a chance when we are disturbed, when we can't fix it. We get a chance to be of service. And when we're of service to somebody else, it gets us out of ourselves. When we're not talking about what's wrong with me, I get a chance to listen to you and be about you and be able to be of service to you. It takes me out of myself and gives me the relief that I need for however long that is. And so what we've been given in AA we've been given a master design for living, but there are some people based on their faith tradition who've been able to access that master design for living without having to come to a 12-step program. No, they don't suffer like us, but they have tools too. And so I'm really careful to acknowledge that this God that I have now serve and that's acted very powerfully in my life has not been because I've been a good girl, but simply because I serve a good God.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a book. I lived in Asia for a bit, and there's a book that I read. I had 6 years sober at this point, and it was about a pastor, charismatic pastor, and his backstory was, right, insecure, never felt enough.
Yes.
And when he found God and became a pastor, you know, he's like, I'm going to save the world, change the world, and opening up churches all around the world, serving
Beautiful.
ministry. He's like, but then I got to a point where I felt so empty again and overwhelmed, and I was confused. And then God revealed, hey, you're doing it again. Like, you're enough. What are you trying to prove to me now? Like, yeah, now you're trying to prove your love to me, and it doesn't work like that. Like, I love you whether you minister to one person or a million. Remember that. And that was a big revelation for me, because I was trying to save the world because I have to. I'm going to change the world. And I'm like, God, why am I feeling overwhelmed? Why am I running into mental breaks? I don't get it. I'm going to church. I'm praying. I'm doing ministry. And God's like, oh, you're missing the point again. Like, I love you because of you. That's why. Like, what are you trying to do? Like, take a day off. Like, go take a nap. Like, I'm not going to love you less. What are you talking about?
You know, I think if we haven't identified the fact that we've been loved unconditionally, it's hard to identify unconditional love.
Yes.
You know, and so if we don't know what that looks like, it's hard to accept that this God who we don't see could love us unconditionally. But then the proof becomes in the pudding. It's through our experience. That's why I love this 12-step process. It's not an intellectual exercise. It's an experiential process.
Yeah.
And it is through our experiences that we come to know God the way we know God, and that we become willing the way that we are. Because, you know, the fact of the matter is that we all fall short, right? Ain't no perfect program because there's no perfect people. You know, we just do the best that we can with what we have. And we feel so much, you know? And so then I could have some stuff going on in my life as long as I'm sober. And when I say I'm not drinking and using, but I've got some other stuff that's not resolved. And God will still use me. I could still be of service. I mean, how do you come from where we come from? You shared a bit with me about your story. How do you come from wanting to die, trying to die? How do I get from not enoughness, not pretty enough, not smart enough, not good enough, to being enough for God? It's like I just embrace my own humanity. And I ask God every day, God, what are we doing today? How do you want to use me today? You know, so yeah, the God idea becomes real.
No, yeah, I love that. I think, and you're so right. It's if you didn't grow up in a healthier family, because I believe all families have some form of dysfunction, right?
Absolutely.
If you didn't grow up in a healthier family where mom and dad were doing their best to show unconditional love, right? If you don't get that, then like you said, it's hard to kind of comprehend unconditional love from an entity I can't see, right, physically. But if you do get that type of love, then you could go, wait, you're telling me God loves me more than my mom and dad? Like, there's no way. My mom and dad love me so much unconditionally. God loves me more. It's a lot easier to kind of identify, okay, whoa, but if I don't even know what that looks like, it's like I don't know how to even compare it to something tangible, which happens a lot, right? People with their daddy issues, mommy issues, they grew up in dysfunction. And so you're right. I think that's why there was this practice where it's like, I want you to write out what God is to you. What do you think God is to you? And usually subconsciously people will put on the characteristics of their mom and dad onto this God, whether they know it or not. And that's the problem, is that what you choose God to be is how you're going to receive God through your perception, because that's how you think it is. So you're like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, God's going to punish me. It's like, whoa. If you think negatively, you're going to attract negativity, not because God's doing it to you, because you're thinking that way. If You change it.
Well, yeah, because, our parents were our first gods.
Mm-hmm.
They were the higher power,
Yeah.
the higher authority in our lives. No matter if we perceived it to be good or bad, those were our very first image bearers of God.
Mm-hmm.
And so based on who they were and our experience with them, we begin to form these ideas about the unseen God. And what we see, man, will make us either hide because we're afraid or hide because we're ashamed.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Never running like little children to God. And I think that in recovery, and because I got sober early in my 20s, I was destroyed before I had an opportunity to become. I didn't know who I was, what I had on the inside of me. And so I was debating with some of the old timers and, some of the folks across the coffee table about recover. Well, what is it that I am to recover? I never had anything. I never lost. I mean, what was it I'm going to recover? I never had a house. I wasn't married. I didn't have any children. The best thing I could say is I got fired from a good job. I didn't have that anymore. So what am I to recover? And then, I was challenged to pray to this God that I was kind of ashamed to approach because I'm not enough. And what I came up with early on is that what Pat Parker needed to recover was God's original intention for her life. And I believe that is for every human being. God's intention for humanity. What is that? And what does that look like on you? I believe that God loves me and he loves you unconditionally, and that his thoughts towards us are good, that he has thoughts of peace. He wants to give us a hope for a future. He has a destiny awaiting us, and all we have to do is just walk it out. And some of us walk up steps to get there. And that we've been given in exchange for the miserable, incomprehensible, demoralizing lives we had. But that was the cost to this life of, we couldn't even thought about this. Could you have thought this up?
Mm-mm. No.
We would have missed it. I couldn't have wrote this out. And I grew up watching TV. I have a great imagination, right? But I wouldn't have been able to write it out. And here we are.
Yeah.
Simply servants of one another, willing. And it doesn't even mean we're able to successfully pull it off. We just be willing, Fausto.
I know. God just show up. God does the rest.
Yeah, it's like, God, I'm willing to, what do you want me to do? Okay, Here I am, pat for duty.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
For you, because I think a big topic we talk on is like forgiveness. And there's a lot of forgiveness talked about in the big book. And then I think there's a deeper layer of forgiveness in the Bible. And I love doing both of them together. I think is very powerful. For you, when you're in your addiction, right, and you're drinking, you're smoking weed, you're doing crack, what did you discover that you were running away from, that you were coping with, that drugs and alcohol was doing for you? What did you discover? Because like you said, right, you can't go back to it, but there's still something you're going to uncover. And how did forgiveness play a factor in your recovery?
I grew up believing that I just wasn't enough.
And why do you think so? Why do you think that was implanted in your mind?
I think that I grew up with, well, for me, I grew up watching television. It was such a powerful medium in my life. It captured my imagination and gave me the lenses through which I began to view life. And very early on, I began to measure my insides by other people's outsides. And I remember when I was growing up, number one, there wasn't a whole lot of people that looked like me on television. And the 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 things that I was attracted to um, growing up, that family didn't look like mine. First off, when I was growing up on television, there was always a mother and a father in the household. And when mother was at home, she was always dressed nice with a string of pearls and an apron. And if she had to discipline the children, she always did so in an even tone. And on television, if dad was absent, it wasn't because um, he made a conscious decision not to parent his children. It was because something tragic happened, like he died. And I'm watching television and I'm looking at my household and it looks different. And I begin to believe that something is wrong because I believe what's on television is true. And I'm measuring imagination with my own reality, and I become discontent in my own reality very early on. And even though we had the essential thing, and the essential thing was love. In fact, if love was enough to not be alcoholic, then I would not be, because I've always had people in my life who loved me, who were committed to making my life work. But I suffered with that profound sense of not enoughness. And I believed that if it was on television, that was the truth and that something was wrong with our household. And I bought the lie, Fausto, very early on. And here's the lie. If I live in the right neighborhood, if our house is nice enough, if I have the right level of education, if I have the right title, if I make the right amount of money, if I drive the right car, if I'm in the right relationship, then I will be happy. And I begin to pursue from a child happiness the way I understood happiness to be had. And we now know. We do know. Because we've been sitting in rooms. I know. Being in Alcoholics Anonymous, I've sat in rooms next to people who ain't gonna never be broke, who did not have the same upbringing that I had. If they felt like they were not enough, and most of them have identified with that feeling, it wasn't because of my not enoughness. It wasn't because of the things that made me feel not enough. Not the outside stuff. And yet, they had it all, and still, it was not enough for them to feel like they wanted to live. And so, I recognize that those formative years, they make a difference in what influences you. Television. So, forgiveness. How to forgive myself. Those 12 steps, they've been very important. It helps me to put pen to paper, to see the truth about the circumstances, the condition, to identify as best I can in that moment. It's always good to do more inventory and inventory and inventory. And to forgive folk, because I could get the chance to see me. And to understand that I've overlaid my lens on them. And that there's a default way that I think. And so then I get a chance to begin to let people off the hook. But I find that I'm the last person to forgive. And that is because I have such high expectations for myself. because there's still a part of me that wants to be godlike. I really want to run and control my own life. And when I don't meet my own expectations, that voice inside of me, the measurer, tells me that I'm not enough. It is what I contend with today. Yes, I have recovered from many things, but I also understand that the things that I suffer from, that profound sense of not enoughness, today hides in the nooks and crannies. And at any given moment can blindside me to the point of performance. And when I find myself performing, not being my authentic self, not keeping it 100, not being honest, not telling the truth, straight up lying, it's because I'm afraid that I'm not enough. And so when I see it, I have to forgive myself. And so forgiveness is a process. And I need all 12 steps in order to do it. I was talking to my sponsor, and he tells me, Pat, you know what you do? It's a pattern. What I believe about the 12 steps is it shows us. It's not that once we see who we are, once we understand and identify our patterns, they don't all go away, but we know what we're working with. It's important that you know what you're working with so that you know it's your stuff and you can distinguish it from somebody else's stuff, that you can see you, right? He tells me, you know what you do? Is you tell yourself scary stories by the campfire. It's like you're like a little kid at camp, sitting around the campfire, and you make up scary stories, ghost stories, and you get scared. He says, and it's become so ingrained, I don't know if you'll ever stop sitting by the campfire. He says, so what I would invite you to do, the next time you go to the campfire and you start telling those stories, invite God to come and sit next to you. Now, I know that's a long way around forgiveness, but I just wanted to be very clear that it's a process.
Yeah. Oh, it is. That's why I tell people, right? Because again, I believe there is unforgivable circumstances from a worldly lens if you look at it. Like that's unforgivable through a worldly lens, yes. And that's why it's so important to put the God lens on at times, because that's how you're going to be able to find forgiveness within that moment. And knowing that forgiveness takes time. And it's how long is it going to take? As long as it's going to take. It's not my time, not your time, but God's time. So never let somebody say you need to do it now. And forgiveness is up and down. Sometimes you feel like you forgive, sometimes you take it back, and that's okay. It's a process. There's layers.
Man, I've heard some stories, and there'll be two about forgiveness. Because this is what makes me think. I'm glad you brought this up, because I don't know if there's anything unforgivable. I think that the people's capacity to forgive. I don't know if there is a thing that is unforgivable. I really believe that it is about a person's ability or their capacity at any given moment to forgive a thing. And I say that because two stories. One was my sobriety brother. His son was murdered. And they caught the guy. And he was, couldn't sleep because every time he slept, he kept seeing himself killing the guy who killed his son. And he was like, it was getting really serious. And he couldn't get over it. It's like, you killed my son, I'm going to kill you. I want you dead. And then he said one night in his dream, and in his dream, he would be beating the guy with a hammer, just torturing him for killing his son. And then he too was a believer. And he says, and then one dream, God told him, but he's my son too. That's my son too. and I need you to stop killing my son. And when he woke up, it just drove him to tears, and he was able to see that this too is God's humanity, and that his anger, his unforgiveness did not serve him, but simply tortured him. And he got on his knees and he forgave the boy. What does that mean? Does that mean that he hugged him?
Right.
Saying kumbaya with
Yeah, I'm
him?
going to hang out with you now. We're going to be best friends.
No.
Yeah.
But he released him to the care of God.
Yeah. That's why I always say, right, forgiveness is not for them. It's for the individual. And remembering that, like you said, it frees you from that prison in your mind. And you know, again, that's heavy. It's something that happened, right? A natural way probably for a father to feel towards individual, the dreams and all that stuff. And I love that, right? The person's capacity. Because, one of my traumas is I was a victim of a pedophile. And that's usually when you always hear people, oh, I'll forgive things, but not that, right? Or no, they should die, right? It's a common thing you hear people say. And again, when you're in it and it happens, depending on if it was your kid that it happened to, the person that it happened to, depending on all that, there's so many layers to it. And my whole thing is I always tell people, I forgave him. But like you said, it doesn't mean I went, hey, I'm going to call him on the phone and say, hey, I forgive you. Let's get lunch. No, I didn't tell him to his face. I don't ever want to see him again. I don't plan to. I don't want to hang out with him. And forgiveness doesn't make it right. Doesn't justify that he got away with it. None of that. It's so I don't have to let that anger control me and ruin my life, because hurt people. And I'm not trying to hurt anybody. And I tell people, it doesn't mean you're going to do exactly what they did to someone else, but you will bleed onto the people that you love in some shape or form.
Yeah, to your point, I believe that unforgiveness is like a poison in your system, and it anchors the poison. It's what holds it there. And you simply want to be free. You're not saying that what you did is okay, because it's not.
Right.
I'm not saying that I'll even ever forget what you did,
right,
because I won't.
Right.
What I am saying is that I'm going to release you from my right to do something to you. And what I'm going to do, and I'm not letting you off free, what I'm doing is I'm going to release you to the hands of God and trust that whatever is supposed to happen in your life, that God will be the just judge of that. Because I too have experienced God's forgiveness, and I want to be free.
Yeah.
I want to be free. I just need to be free. You know what? There are times, I was telling somebody recently, was crouching on making me dislike them. It's somebody that I actually respect and like. And I was telling a friend, I said, you know what? I'm going to set a boundary here. And because I don't want them to make me not like them no more. I'm not going to let you make me not like you. And so I can just stop that. We can put a boundary right here. We don't even have to go there. But for you, being a child, becoming an adult, receiving the gift of recovery, having to work through the pain and the trauma, manage the triggers, live with pain. There's one thing that you can do, and that is to forgive, to free yourself so that you too can recover. Does it mean that it's didn't happen? No. That it didn't hurt? No. That it didn't scar? No. But that you are healed and you can live.
That's right. To break the cycle.
And use your story
to help others.
To heal others.
I have a shirt that I wear at the gym. I have a tank top version for the gym. I have a normal shirt that I can wear in public. And on the back of my shirt, it says, I've been sexually abused, I've been addicted, and I've been suicidal. You're not alone. Me too. And it's my way of
Mm.
my way I chose to radically share my story, not only on social media and meetings, wherever I go, people, but wear it on the back of my shirt. Because I'm not going to be able to talk to everybody. But if somebody sees that shirt and they have the courage to talk to me, let's go get some coffee. Even if they don't talk to me, they go, whoa. And they may go talk to somebody.
How many people have approached you?
A lot of people.
Mm.
At gyms, at grocery stores, events, you know, and I love that, because I'm like, man, I would have loved to see that shirt when I was younger, to know that I wasn't alone, you know. And so you're right. And I tell people, like, God could take anything evil and use it for good. If you apply purpose to your pain, it has meaning, and it has meaning. Wow.
Mm.
To me, that's the deepest form of healing, is when you start sharing your story and you see it help somebody. It's like, wow, maybe I didn't go through this for nothing. It's like, you didn't. It's so healing. And like you said, it's not that it makes it right. The pain, the residue of the pain will stay with you.
Mm.
You're not going to forget it. It's like that raw honesty. Like, hey, you won't forget it. It does hurt, and you have to live with it. But it doesn't have to ruin your life. It doesn't have to define you.
Now, we've been talking about people in recovery. We've been talking about you and I.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about those church people who every Sunday, maybe even on Wednesdays for Bible study,
Right, maybe, yeah.
visit those institutions,
Yeah.
go to that neighborhood to which they don't live, but they commute to.
Mm-hmm.
How is it that they can support or be a bridge to somebody who has trauma that they can't identify with? Love. What does love look like in that case? Consistency, showing up, listening, not adding to the trauma.
Right. Seeking to understand.
Listening to their stories, understand their stories, hear their stories, and be a bridge that they can walk across to Christ. Why? Because no matter what you see, they too are image bearers.
Yeah.
No matter what their experience, you don't know what you're looking at. You think you're looking at the worst gangster in the world. You think that you don't know what you're seeing because you don't see the whole thing. But can you be a bridge? Can you be an emissary of God? Can you let God use you to help one of his children? Can you cause no harm? Can you be there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they can. And I think, like you said, right, it just takes training for some people.
It does.
We are blessed to have AA, which is a training ground of how to love people where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can apply those same principles and, skills to people, anybody, they can learn how to love people where they're at.
Yes.
How to seek to understand, how to listen better,
Yes.
to know that if you listen closely, you could find a way to serve this person, whether it's listening, whether it's empathy, maybe it's money, maybe you know someone you could connect them with, but some way. And really understanding like that does more than you telling them what is right and wrong. Is really just listening and loving that person where they're at. You know, so yeah, I think being able to teach people that are open to it, because it does take training. It's not easy. I always say it's not easy. It really isn't easy. That's why some people are better at being a therapist than others. Some people are good at being more of the back end of logistics and organization, right? Hey, know your talents. The Bible talks about in Romans, right? Know your talents.
Yes.
You discover those talents, you can find a way to serve others. There's so many ways to serve people.
It really is. And to your point, you know, maybe you're not the one, but can you create the environment
where the one will show up for them?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. I always tell people like discover what your gifts and talents are that God gave you. You know, my partner, she's really good at behind the scenes, really good. And I'm in front of the scenes, right? I'm Mickey Mouse, she's Walt Disney. And we know that, right? And we know not to try to switch it up. Like, I'm like, hey, I can't do what you do. You can't, and that's okay. Because guess what? I get the same satisfaction doing my part as she does her part, you know? And so you learn that stuff. And so I always tell people, like, yeah, don't try to be me, right?
No.
Don't try to be Pat.
No.
Be who God made you to be.
That's the best thing you can do. And that really is the secret, right? That I was created to be me.
Be unique. Don't die a copy.
No.
Be unique.
Nobody like you.
So for you, what do you think you would try to teach somebody in the church? What would be like some practical ways of like, here's some skills to learn how to meet people where they're at and how to love them?
Well, first thing I think I do is, what I do is we would do a landscape analysis. We need to know who's in the community, what's in the community. You need to identify the demographics. You need to understand the resources. You need to understand what's what. And when I say landscape, if there's gangs in that community, you need to know what the gangs are. You need to know that community, and you need to really look at it from an analytical standpoint. Have it on some paper so that we can see what we're working with. You need to know what you're working with and who you are working with, because that will inform you on what resources that you're going to need for the community. First of all, you're going to have the love, and I just believe that churches have an inherent love, that they really want to be effective in their communities. But I think that some of them have not taken the steps, or maybe have not known how to do the analysis, the in-depth analysis that's needed. And then we need to begin to train people how to engage when they're interacting with community. Like, how to train your face. Something simple.
Like smile more.
Or not frown. Or not be taken aback. Like, you need to understand that Sister Smith, she's got a great heart, but she's not going to be good with community. Her instinct is going to tell that girl to pull that dress down. She going to come to church because somebody's invited them to church. They're going to walk in church. She might have on some leggings or not, and dress up to here. And Sister Smith is going to say, honey, I got some clothes for you.
Sister Smith, let's come back here. Let's tell let me.
Who in your congregation can receive people as they are? And which R's can they receive?
That's, dude, and I love how honest you are, but that's just like you said, it's anywhere. All right, guys, we got a team. Who's good with people? Who's good with numbers? Who's good at data analytics? Who should be at the front? Who should be at the back of, that's
how we make this work.
Yeah. We have to work as a team, right? We're all bodies. We're all, parts of the body of Christ.
But I think the first thing is to know what you're working with. Just like in the 12-step recovery program, we do an inventory. We need to understand our assets and our liabilities. So do institutions and organizations.
Yeah.
They need to understand. They need to take an organizational inventory. They need to understand what they're working with. So externally, they need to know the landscape. Internally, they need to understand who they have. Because, you could have a great congregation, but you may not have all of the resources that you need to meet the needs of the community that you're in. And you might have to bring in some additional resources. Yeah. You might find yourself needing to partner with other churches. You might have to sit down with another pastor who you're secretly competing against.
I love that secretly. Yeah. That's real.
Them over there.
Yeah.
Because, you've been, hating on them. You've been othering them. You've been othering people in the community. You've been othering other churches, making them different than you. When you might have to partner. And maybe it's a faith-based organization that not the same as your tradition, but they're in the same community.
Yeah.
No one has it all, and you're trying to meet the needs of a community. Nobody has it all. Yeah. And we're not talking about proselytizing right now. We're talking about bridging across difference. Yeah. All of the differences.
And I love that because, I think when people try to be I'm going to have all the answers and I'm going to be able to help everybody and I'm going to do it all myself in here, it's the issue. It's like, hey, you're not meant to help everybody. You're meant to help some people. I know my buddy who's been in prison for 20 years can do a lot better with ministering to the prison ministry than me. I can reach him. I know I can. But he understands in a way I don't. I don't mind saying, hey, here you go. Here's an opportunity for you. You know, hey, I don't have kids.
Mm-hmm.
You do have kids, and I see you have a healthy marriage and all that. Like, hey, you run this part helping out people with their kids stuff. Like, I can't help that. And I think being able to bring people together, like you said, right? We're not competing with one another. We're supposed to be working together with the community.
I remember when I was getting in my own way one time, I was on a fellowship. This is when I was at Claremont School of Theology. I was on a fellowship in India to study Jainism. I went to a seminary that operates more like a divinity school. So divinity schools are about the study of the divine in multiple forms. Seminary are specific faith traditions. The seminary that I went to operated more like a divinity school in that they encouraged you to study a different tradition as well. And so I was awarded a fellowship to study Jainism in India. Got a chance for a summer to travel around.
And what is Jainism exactly? What is like?
It's a Darwin contemporary. It's the Jains. They're very interesting people. So Indian folk who they're about 0.5% of the population, and yet their dietary restrictions on every menu. They're about 5.5% of the population and have great wealth. Very powerful. And I was attracted to them because they have a tradition of nonviolence. And they don't eat anything, including vegetables. Of course, they don't eat any living creature, but they don't even eat vegetables that if you pull it, that it kills it dies at the root. So they don't do no garlic. And I had to follow a Jain dietary restriction while in India. That was, ooh.
Bro, what can I eat?
Yeah. You can eat some things.
Here's
but
some
you can...
water. What else? Here's some more water.
So doing some study there. But anyway, while there, when landing in New Delhi, they were trying to prepare us for what we would experience. And they could only use words. Words are limiting. Remember language, I told you. That's how we communicate. It can be limiting. They were trying to prepare us for what we would experience. But, the context is everything. And, my context for, poverty is Los Angeles. If you want to show somebody with a bad, the bad neighborhood, what to go to the bad neighborhood. Yeah. If you want to show them where, real poor, you could take them downtown L.A., certain streets,
Skid Row,
Fifth Street.
homeless, all that, yeah.
All right, that's where you would go because it's contained there. Not so in India. Poverty is not contained. Yeah. And the density of people, because it's the second densest population next to China in the world.
Yeah, India's what, billion? I think it was crazy.
And I'm there, and I've never experienced anything like this. And so I started getting overwhelmed. I remember, because I'm walking down the streets in New Delhi, and there's women and children pulling on my sleeve and, my shirt saying, feed me. That was the thing that was overwhelming because it was like, I want to help everybody. And I remember asking the Holy Spirit to help me. God, help me. I'm starting to feel I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. I need you to insulate me. And what to do. And I said, and this is what I said. I said, I can't help everybody. What God said? You're right. You cannot help everybody, but you can help some. And you will have to choose the some that you help. Yeah. And I was like, well, how do I do that?
Right. Well,
how do I do that? And Spirit said, the same instinct that you use at home when someone comes up to you when you're in the gas station pumping gas and they ask you for money, some you give to and some you don't, based on the instinct.
Yeah.
Use that instinct here.
Wow.
So I immediately felt a sense of insulation, and I knew that I would come back with nothing, that I would give away everything that I brought with me. Every dime, every nickel, clothes. And I would get back on that plane. and come home. And so with that, we cannot help everyone, but you can help some.
Yeah.
And you will get to choose the some that you help.
And I love that. And I think more people need to learn that, and more people need to teach that, because I think sometimes, yeah, right. Like I always say, hey, the woman who has $10 only and gives $1, that is more meaningful than the person with $1 million that gives 100. You know what I mean? Like in that moment, like think about look at, like, she gave so much. Don't feel bad because you can't give 100,000, 200,000. You gave a lot based on what you have. That's amazing. But also don't give too much where you put yourself in debt and now you can't pay your own bills. Find ways to give, like you said, right? And I love that, following your gut instinct to like some. And like you said, yeah, it's okay. Because this is what I learned. My pastor told me, Fausto, John Smith was calling you, needed help. Don't feel bad that you couldn't help him today, because I guarantee you John Smith's going to call Eric, Sean, Tony until he figures it out.
And capacity, like when we were talking about those institutions, and let's talk about the subjects that we don't like to talk about as a church, right? What about the folks that we don't really identify with, that we really other? You need to know who you are as a church. Maybe who are your some? Okay, choose them. Choose the some that you help. Choose the some in your neighborhood that you know that you're capable of, and the some that you can. It's important that you do your institutional inventory, that you understand that, so that you can partner with the right people to help the other some.
Yeah.
So, because if I help some and you help some and they help some, then a lot of folk have been helped.
That's right.
But if I only help my some and not be willing to partner with somebody else, then my community is not served. Mm-hmm. What if you can honestly say as a church that you are the some that you will not help is the LGBTQ community? Maybe you have some young trans folk in your community, in your churches there, and you already know that your congregation does not have the capacity to serve them. Then you need to partner with somebody who can.
I love that. I love that you bring that up too, right? Because like I love that. What are the things that people don't want to talk about? All the things that you hear. It's like people may say something, but never want to say it. I had a pastor who he was a pastor at a mega church in Irvine, and one day God just said, he's like, you know what? Now this is not what I thought. Like, this big church, amazing, but it's in Irvine. What am I doing here? He's like, I'm gonna go to Santa Ana, and I'm gonna open up a church in Santa Ana where it's needed. And he's like, and I'm going to make sure that, that's where I'm at. And that's what he did, right? He went there, Santa Ana, committed, and he's doing that. And one of the church services, he had a trans on stage as the guest, interviewing, her experience with God. And, you have some people, can you believe what he's doing? Oh my God, what is he doing? Oh, we got to help him. What is he doing? And then you have other people like myself. I'm like, that's amazing. That is so cool what he's doing. People, I'm like, you're missing the point of what he's doing. And,
I think with the church is that there's a belief that bridging, and this is what I want to highlight, and if you're a ministry, a leader, a community leader, a church, an institution, and you want to make a difference in your community and you believe that you can do more, you just need more help. That's what the Bridge Across is for. That's what the Bridge Across is about, not love to be able to help you. But what I want you to understand clearly is this. Bridging is not about affirmation or agreement. I am not asking you, and bridging is not asking you to lay aside who you are to be a bridge. But it is asking that you acknowledge the difference and not pretend like it's not there. And respect the human being. And respect that they too are image bearers.
Yeah, I love that. I think one issue I've seen, and maybe you've seen this, is the social media pastors. And I'm not saying all of them mean to do it, but the reality is when a pastor or whoever's running the page, or maybe they're a new Christian, right? Maybe you're a baby Christian. Just like anything, when you're new to something, we're always going to overdo it maybe, or 'cause we have a conception of what it is, and then we kind of get humbled and kind of chill out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the issue is like, okay, how do I grow my social media page as a pastor? Well, you got to say something really crazy the first 3 seconds.
Oh,
And then people love that though.
is that what I need to do?
Yeah, right. That's what you do.
Thank you,
And then the
Pastor.
problem I think with that is like, for example, it's kind of like, okay, man, I got 1 million hits, and he's a big thing, and he's this new Christian evangelist. But I'm like, but to me, that's not loving people where they're at. He's just bashing people. But you get people in the comments, yeah, that's right. That's how you got to be a Christian. You let them know they're wrong and tell them that they got to change, and if not, they're going to hell. And it's unfortunate that in the social media world, that's what does well. So then now you have new people in this day and age that are growing up basing off the Bible off of social media, and they go, that's how I got to be a Christian. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, no, that's not actually okay. But in the social media world, that's what works.
You know, I think that that's really common in life practices outside of the small screens and the internet too, because we can only be where we are at any given time. And the grace is that we all get a chance to evolve. And so it's important that I extend grace to people, because grace has been extended to me. You know, I have not always been the person that I am now. I have simply grown through grace to the person. I mean, you know, even in I used, you know, the big book thumpers.
Yeah, exactly. You got it. Yeah, it's the same thing.
In the program,
Work
the steps or die.
Sit down and shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's where they are then.
Yeah.
But they too will grow.
Yeah.
And so I have to extend that grace.
Yeah.
There was a friend of mine he told me once, he said, so now that they done graduated, they want to burn the school down. Gotta let people learn.
Yeah.
Gotta let them come along. Gotta let them grow and be where we are. So then the question comes back to Pat, what am I doing? And what can I do? You know, and, you know, I want to be helpful in that I don't label the church or faith-based institutions in any way as bad. That might be where they are. And, you know, so your friend started in Irvine and had a successful congregation, probably, you know, that gave a lot, you know,
Yeah, I did a lot.
You know, financially stable. And those people that went there, I'm sure that they probably loved the Lord and wanted to do more, but they were in their context. And he came to, like we come to.
I love that.
He came to and said, I think I belong someplace else. I think God is calling me to a people someplace else. And there's nothing wrong with the people where I've been serving, but
Right.
he's calling me
Yeah.
someplace else. And so then he obeys the voice that he hears towards service.
Yeah.
And at any given moment, I think that's what we're all responsible to do, is obey the voice that we hear towards service, no matter where we find ourselves.
Yeah. I remember one of my buddies, he's a worship leader and a Christian artist. He wrote the song Break Every Chain.
Did he write that?
And Spirit Lead Me, which is huge, right? He wrote it. And so one time I was on the phone with him and he goes, you know, Foss, sometimes God promotes you. It's not that was not right for you. It's not that you were never supposed to be there. It's that God's saying your time in this place for this season is done. It's time for you to be promoted.
Thank you.
And allow somebody else to come in to take your place in a sense and let them now grow in the Lord. And he's like, and that's okay. Remember that. That's it's okay.
Yeah.
He's like,
thank you.
He's like, sometimes though you'll run into is you're ready to move on, but people aren't ready to let go of you yet, and that's okay. Just remember, follow God's voice. He'll take care of the rest. And so you're right. Yeah, like you said, it's not that wasn't for me. It's not right. It's God's just saying, all right, cool. Now we're going over here.
That applies in everything, in careers and jobs and
Relationships, all
relationships. You know, sometimes it's like, it's time.
Yeah.
God promotes because that's what the word says. That promotion comes from the Lord.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It was good when I heard that.
Yeah, that was a good one. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, the internet pastors, you know, how do I say this? I don't have a bad take on them. My view may be different from a lot of because, I've served in traditional church, and, right now I'm going to, be doing some stuff based on the internet. But I will say this. I think that 2020 was a wake-up call and that God is doing a new thing. I don't think the church is ever going to be like it was before.
Oh, no. Nope.
It was interesting because I had served as an assistant at a traditional church prior to the pandemic. And I remember in one of our regular meetings with the pastor, I suggested that we do something internet-wise, get on the internet and do something. And because I had a vision. The vision that I had is that, and when I say vision, that I believe that God was telling me that soon that the word of God would be running like a river in the air. And people would only need to simply reach up and grab it. And I remember telling this to this pastor, and this pastor said to me, yeah, but who knows what they'll reach up and get. And I remember said to him, I said, no, they'll be okay, because once you've tasted and seen for yourself, nobody can give you something that's not authentic. You'll be able to know the difference. It's just like eating healthy food and eating junk food. You'll know that you pulled out some junk and you'll put it aside. The Bible talks about come taste and see. See for yourself. Once you know, then you've got it. You'll be able to. And then the world shut down. And he, along with everybody else, had to go to the internet, something that they resisted.
Yeah.
And so now what it has created, Fausto, is choice. But who am I to deny what the Lord can do? Who am I to deny someone choice? If God has restored the power of choice to me, if God has given me the choice to choose God or not, who am I to deny another human being the right that God has given, and that is the power of choice? That is the distinction between us and the animal kingdom. We have the power of choice.
Yep.
So why would I deny that to you? God doesn't.
Yeah.
And so what's happening is that I think traditional churches are hating on these internet ministries because it's unlike anything that's ever happened before. We've never been here before. It's never been like this before. It's never been where you could access the best preachers, the best of the best, and line them up on a Sunday. Like some Sundays you might be in Oklahoma. Another Sunday you might be over in the DMC. You might be, in Houston. You might be in Atlanta. All on the same Sunday, because you are accessing the best of the best according to what feeds you.
Right.
And then you have a local pastor or a local church that's been doing what they've doing, has been refusing to change. It's not that they're not serving, but I refuse to believe that God has not been whispering in their ear, I want you to do something different because I'm getting ready to do a new thing.
Yeah.
And the best that they can do is persecute the people on the internet.
Yeah, instead of adapting to it. And you see it happen even in cultures and everything in general.
I don't want to get in trouble for that.
Yeah.
I love y'all.
Yeah.
I love the church. I'm part of you.
Yeah. But you see it even like with easy, tangible, digestible example. Restaurants. And, restaurants been around for a long time. And their kids are like, hey, you got to try these new exotic tacos, these new mixture tacos. And they're like, no, we stick to what we do. We're not going to conform to this. And then what happens? Taco shop closes. But the other taco shop where the parents are like, you know what? Okay, mijo, I'm going to try this. Let's make a Asian fusion Mediterranean taco.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, they're all over TikTok and they're doing well. It's like,
yes.
You got to adapt. And
we must.
Okay. It's just that's the way the life is going. Like you said, it's probably when the internet first came out. Oh my God, it's not going to be a thing. We're not going to do that. Computers, all that. And then you do. And then when the smartphone came out, we're not going to do the smartphone. And then now you do. AI, we're not going to do that. And now you do. It's just like you said, when it's new, there's
Mhm.
always going to be resistance.
Yeah, and I think, but I think the point here is that it's about following the voice of God,
Mm-hmm.
hearing God, and following God in the moment. And I'm not trying to say that internet church replaces community.
Yes, that's a good one.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because in spite of where you might be receiving good word from, where you're growing from, I think that you need people, that you
Yeah.
have to have community.
Yeah.
Now, we're living in the age of how you form that community can be different.
Mm-hmm.
You remember when it was a new thing that happened? I think it's really interesting. Kerry Washington, what was her show she used to do with the president and the white? She was this.
I know what you're talking about. I just can't remember.
Her character.
Kerry Washington. What is it?
Yeah, it was really the hottest series. And with that show, they started doing watch parties. Meaning that they would gather community in person to come together and watch that show and have discussions about it.
Mm-hmm.
That was a phenomenon. People slept on that.
Mm-hmm.
That can be what internet church is like.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, we need community.
Yeah, there's nothing like, my opinion, that human connection in person versus the human connection online. Like you said, I'm not saying that doesn't work. You can use, they all work in sync, but we need that. That's why when COVID happened, the whole AA meetings on Zoom, I couldn't do it. It's not that what they were saying wasn't helpful. It wasn't that I got a lot out of a share, but it was like, man, I want to hang out with you guys. Like, I need that feeling. And a lot of people were relapsing because of that. That had time, and there's people that suck, newly sober people, that's the year they're getting sober, and that happens, and they didn't make it. I've seen people die that year. It was hard. I worked in treatment during that time, and everybody got high. Everybody. I worked at a 100-bed facility, and it was because we can't have any of them together. You got to keep everyone separate. You can't leave the house. That's the worst thing for early recovery. You got to sit in your head. You can't see the therapist. You can't be a part of the group. You can't talk to your fellows. And so, yeah, I think that type of in-person connection is so important. Luckily, my pastor and okay, guys, don't get mad, but luckily during COVID, we opened up our house to everybody to have church and to have community.
Isn't that beautiful?
We did, and people, of course, judged it. I get it. Maybe we were wrong I don't know, but we did it, and a lot of people were grateful for it. Pastors, churches, people that needed help, because like, man, that got me through that year.
Yeah, I need people. I like, in-person meetings, but, when we're in survival mode, we do what we got to do.
Mm-hmm.
When the world was shut down, but it also expanded. Mm-hmm. When the world opened back up, there are a lot of hybrid meetings or meetings that they don't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
When you were in, folks from Europe.
Yeah.
Were coming to your local meeting, and they became regulars.
Yeah.
So many wonderful things have happened. I just think that we have to stay open and go with the flow and meet people right where they are. So I just, I'm really cautious about just thinking that there's only one way.
I love that.
It's this and that, not either or.
I love this one piece of wisdom that I use every day. Blessed are the flexible. Blessed are the flexible. And life won't bend you out of shape. Blessed are the flexible.
Yes.
Yes. All right. I guess we're going left today. I thought we were going right, but that's okay.
Yoga.
Oh, I thought we were going here, but that's fine. I guess this is my new favorite place. My pastor used to always say, Fausto, this is the best French fry I've ever had in my life. I go, Pastor, you say that all the time. He goes, why? I can't say that? Why not? Why can't wherever I go be the best place, the best time, the best moment? And I'm like, wow, that's so good. He's like, because if you think like that, you will feel that.
I got a friend named Nina Nolcock. She's passed on, but she used to have this saying, I'm in the middle of a great life.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. And this is why she was dying of cancer. Every time she would share, I'm in the middle of a great life. And if we could just hold on to that.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of a great life.
I love that.
Oh, I'm losing stuff.
Well, Pat, as we come to the end of this podcast, which thank you for everything you've shared so much. I enjoyed it. I could talk to you for another 2 hours. I learned
Thank
a
you
lot.
so much.
And just
I
know,
appreciate being with you and connecting.
yeah, I'm going to borrow some of your one-liners. Just know that.
Please do, but make sure you give me credit
I
for
will.
at least the first 3
I
times.
will. But
you
anyone
do
know
it.
Pat Parker here? No? Okay,
Yeah,
I
Pat
came up with that.
Parker. You know Pat Parker, Pastor Pat, the Value Series Ministries.
Yeah,
You know,
they go,
do
yeah, we
that
do.
now.
Okay, then I borrowed it from her, guys. That was her. Right?
Okay.
So with these ones are speed questions. We ask everybody these speed questions, and you answer it in 1 minute or less.
Okay.
First one. What are 3 books you would recommend to someone to read that can completely change their life?
Reconstruction, W.E.B. Du Bois, the Bible, and the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous.
I love that. Yeah, so for everyone, just for the most part, always goes Bible. I go, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Second question is, what was one single mindset shift that completely changed your life?
That God loves me unconditionally.
And this is a funny one, what is the worst piece of advice someone's ever given you?
Ooh.
There might be a lot.
I filtered through the worst piece. I thought you was going to ask me the best advice, but the worst, I don't know.
Okay. Let's go with the best advice someone's ever given you.
10% of what you earn is yours to keep.
Elaborate on that.
I was young in my 30s, and I was working in a county job where I was going over people's financials for senior HUD placement. And I was going over the financials of this, elderly man, and he had like about $90,000 cash in his bank account. And I don't think I had met anyone. I'm holding the paper where they're doing this and they're getting HUD housing. And I was like, and I just asked him, how did you do that? You asked me, you mind if I ask you? And he simply looked at me. It's like I'm not a miracle. There's nothing special about me. He says, but 10% of what you earn is yours to keep. I knew about the 10%, but I understood it to be the tithe. Mm-hmm. I knew that I was supposed to give that away, right. Give it to the church, give away 10%. But nobody ever told me that I was supposed to tithe to myself too. And that 10% of what I earned was mine to keep, and give away 10 and keep 10.
I love that. Yeah, I think.
So I tell that to young people whenever I counter them, you need to be saving 10%.
Yeah.
It's yours to keep.
Yeah. I remember my sponsor, he's from DC, right? And he was there for the crack epidemic. And he told me that one time, and we had such a good relationship, right? Laughing. And then one day I was like, man, I got no money right now. I'm struggling with this thing. He goes, what do you mean you got no money? Don't you got like 3-4 years of sobriety right now? I'm like, yeah. He goes, you're effing up. And it hurt me because he's never talked to me like that. But he was trying to say like, hey, I'm trying to say like, that is something you should be working on too. Mm-hmm. You should be saving money, man. And if you don't, you're going to constantly feel like you're in this place of desperation at this. And it was, and that taught me that it was that hard moment, but of tough love. Mm-hmm. And I never forgot that. And I did my best to learn about stuff like that.
Yeah, it's given me some financial peace, and I'm not rich or anything like that. But I mean, I'm just thinking that, I never wanted to be one paycheck away from anything.
Yeah, because it feels so good once you're like, wait, if I was to lose my place today, I have enough money to survive for this long. If my car needs a fix, I can afford it. If this, like, it feels so good to have that. You're like peace, because you're like, because life will happen, things will break down. It's a part of life, and it's nice to have that little, emergency fund for that.
It's necessary. Yeah. It's a way of living. The worst piece of advice I've ever received was never let them see you sweat.
Ooh, elaborate on that, because you do hear that in different communities or places, that different styles of that being said.
It made vulnerability kryptonite. Mm-hmm. And relationships require vulnerability.
Yeah.
All relationships. It was the worst piece of advice. Yeah. And I got it from television. Back in the 70s. There was a secret commercial A secret deodorant commercial.
Deodorant, damn you.
Never let them see you sweat. Of course they dramatized
Of course,
it. And I was
yeah.
like, yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah.
Never let them see you sweat.
Yeah, that's good. I see a lot of men I work with that don't want to open up about what happened to them. They're like, I'm taking this thing to my grave. And it ends up taking them to their grave earlier than God had intended, you know?
Yeah, but I think that's rooted in shame because some things that happened to us, we found a semblance of pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the stuff that we want to take to our graves. Not that it happened to us.
Mm-hmm.
When we can blame somebody else. But if there was anything in it that resembled pleasure, for example, there have been women who've been raped.
Mm-hmm.
And while being raped, they experienced orgasm simply because of the physical stimulation.
I love that you're sharing this because I literally say the same version for men on a men's side.
And that thing keeps them from reporting it.
Mm-hmm.
And it produces shame because I enjoyed it. They don't want to tell anybody. And so that's what I think that's rooted in. I could be wrong.
No, the fact that when you said that at first, I was like, let me listen to her. And then you said that part, I'm like, there it is. Yep. And I never heard it like that, but because I was going to use that example. But then you were right, because I tell men, I go, look, I was confused when it happened to me because there was a sense of pleasure.
Yes.
And it was a male, and I was under the influence of meth when he did it to me. So that made it even, as you know, crack, having said whatever, it's even a million X the feeling of sensation. So I was confused. That's why I didn't want to tell nobody. Because in my mind, like you, I lived through TV shows. And when I see a scene that's supposedly rape, they're screaming, and I'm like, oh my God, that wasn't, why did it feel good? Oh my gosh. I feel shame.
Shame, I think, is the most pervasive. I think it's greater than hate. Because, see, shame gets on everything.
Mm.
You can't put a rug on top of it. If you do, it will bleed through. It gets on everything.
Yeah.
I think that emotion, and I simply try not to do anything that would cause shame in my life.
Yeah.
Because it would make me be like Adam and Eve. I'll hide from God.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful. And then my last one.
Okay.
You're in an elevator with somebody, and they go, hey, Pat, I've heard your story, but my crack addiction, my alcoholism is different than yours. Mine's worse, and I've tried everything to get sober and get right, and it just doesn't work for me. I am hopeless. I'm not meant to be sober. What would you want to say to them?
I believe that God can use that too. Tell me more about your story.
I love that. Tell me more about your story.
Yeah.
That's powerful. I'm not even going to say anything. I want you to tell me more.
Tell me more.
I love that. Well, Pat, I just want to say thank you so much for coming out here today and making the time and making the drive and sharing your experience, strength, and hope.
Thank you so much.
So much wisdom. If people want to reach you, check out what you got going on, how can they contact you?
You can reach me at patparkernow.com or thevalueseriesministries.org or patatthevalueseries.com.
I love that. I'll make sure to plug all those things in the description.
I appreciate that.
And I'll put those in. And yeah, so just thank you again for being here.